So, why did you decide to edit the Roald Dahl books?
Well, we launched a sensitivity review and we think that it's plain and obvious that being so offensive just won't cut it in a modern society.
Some have suggested that you made the step to try to pander to a more modern audience, to keep sales up.
Oh gosh, no, absolutely not. We thoroughly believe that this language is offensive, wrong, and has no place in our culture. Money does not impact our morality.
Brilliant. So the horrific backlash from many people who have suggested that it was an overreaction and that they, in fact, won't be buying the book anymore won't affect your decision at all.
What? Are you saying to me that our sales are down?
Well, yes, there's been a huge backlash, but fair play for sticking to your guns and going with what you believe is morally correct.
Whoa. Steady on there, boy. We here at the Roald Dahl Company take issues of censorship extremely seriously. We'd never edit books if it means our reputation and bank balance took a hit. We'd never edit books.
Wait, so doesn't this make your whole sensitivity review kind of pointless?
Oh, no. We're going to make both the originals and the edited versions available for sale. And we believe both that these edits are morally right and morally wrong, depending on who's buying the book. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Teach, Sleep, Repeat. This is episode 5. My name is Dylan.
And my name is Hayden.
And we are back again with another one. It's been a busy week this week. There's another teacher strike going on. As we record this, it's happening today. For you, it will be obviously in the past. But what I wanted to do, Hayden, was just ask you, how's your week been, mate? I've not really been catching up with you much this week.
I've not seen you, have I? I've had a funny week, actually. I have taught something for the first time. Now, it's not often, is it, in our career now, this far in, that we actually teach something and it's brand new. We've kind of done it all, right? I've been teaching yoga. And I'll just preface this with when I introduced it to this group of kids, they were like, what are we going to do? What are we doing in PE? What are we doing? I said, yoga. And they were like, one of them looked me up and down, right? And went, oh. Honestly, as if to be like, oh, I'm not sure you can stretch. And she said, no offense, but don't you have to be a little bit more flexible for that? And I was like, you cheeky. But inside thinking, oh, yeah, I am actually not flexible whatsoever. So I've been teaching a bit of yoga.
Well, funnily enough, my children as well, I've told them that we'll be doing dance soon in PE. And I had a very similar experience, actually, of them just thinking, okay, I don't think that you'll be teaching me how to dance.
Yeah, do you know what? I've enjoyed it though. It was like way more than I thought I would. I was a little bit like, oh God, just get through this unit. Never taught yoga. It's been really good. The kids are actually loving it. It's all about relaxation, obviously, and stretching. And I was thinking, oh, they're all going to just be like, oh, well, let's just play some sport, you know. They love it. They're stretching. They're like breathing properly. I'm thinking they're going to laugh. They're not. They're being really well behaved. It's actually quite enjoyable.
I think a lot of people actually, with yoga, it's a really interesting one because when they do it, adults included, there's a lot of skeptics, but afterwards, nearly everyone I've seen tried it actually goes, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it's good just to slow down and stretch your body and control your breathing. Like it does feel better to do those things.
Yeah, this relaxation thing is relaxing. I never thought it would do that. I did have a funny experience though. One of the children, I don't know who it was, but it was just funny because it was a silent hall. We're doing a frog pose, which is where you literally look like a frog.
I don't know what a frog pose is. Is it as simple as that?
Exactly what you imagine. Legs kind of apart, like knees out, you know, like a frog. And you just kind of crouch down and you do some breathing. Crouch down. You can imagine what happened. You're compressing your stomach. Just had a nice little trump through the hall as we did that. That was quite amusing. Had to try to ignore that. Like, you know, you just pretend like, oh no, didn't hear that. And all the kids are like,
just as you're trying to calm everyone down, someone lets one rip.
Yeah, luckily they were calm enough to just get over it pretty quickly. Anyway, what have you been up to?
Well, it's been assessment week for us. Obviously, down in lower school, years 3, 4, and 5 in our school, we're doing assessments just to see how they're getting on halfway through the year. And assessment week always throws up some absolute corkers. I absolutely love marking their tests. I really do. Sometimes you think, oh, I've got to get through all of these papers, and they pile up really quickly. You do a maths, arithmetic, you do an English reading, then the next day you've got another reasoning paper, and you've got GPS. It just adds up and adds up. Actually, I relish it because some of the answers are just unbelievable. And they've really thrown up some comedy this year. We had one question in maths, and it was a reasoning question. So one of the characters in the test, because you have the same characters, you know, Shiv and Dev, they're always in there.
Yeah.
In the SATs, we know it's Chen. Good old Chen always turns up. But in our papers, one of them had said, if I count from 0 to 421, if I count in from 0 in my 4 times tables, counting up in 4s, will I reach 421?
Yeah.
Yes or no? And I had lots of answers. Brilliant. None of them right. But lots of very interesting answers, because we've been really focusing on like the procedure, getting them really solid at actually doing the maths. And we've done some reasoning, obviously, but just they're a little bit sketchy, but they really try so hard. And the answers, they were genuine, but they really made me laugh. And one child, again, we were talking about being quick in a test and how pace is quite important, because if you get stuck on a question, you can't really waste all your time on it, because you might have a question you can do later on, which means you won't get there in the end. So we train them to just think, okay, if you're not sure, just go into the next one, come back to it later.
Yeah.
Anyway, this child's answer put a bit of fear into me that he'd been sat there for 10 minutes, because he said, no, because I counted from 0 and I didn't get to 421.
Oh no, it just wasted our time. I thought you were going to say no, because the times table doesn't go that high. that's like a classic one.
Before. I had one that said yes, and their answer was simply yes, because, and in these questions, you don't get a mark just for saying yes or no. They're really just testing your explanation, your reasoning. One of them said yes, because numbers go on forever.
They were really trying to catch you out there, weren't they? Thinking he'll believe that. He'll take that one.
That's a good reason. Yeah, they do go on. And another one that really cracked me up, it was this specific question, basically, because it made me realize perhaps that's something we can work on in the future. Because one of the children said, and I've never ever muttered these words in my life, but it was really cute because I can see where they've got it from. They went, yep, 421 is because any number with a 4 in is in the 4 times table.
They're trying. They know that you need those kind of answers. The logic's not there behind them.
Yeah, they might have got it from the 5 times table. No, it's 5 and zeros, or in 2 times table has to be an even number. And I thought, I was really actually, I wasn't at all annoyed, obviously. And I just think that's a really good use of assessment, actually.
Yeah.
When you get them moments of, wait a minute, nearly everyone was kind of falling down on this question type. And that's where assessments can be so useful, because sometimes it can feel like you're hitting your head against the wall. Like, why are we bothering with this assessment? I'd rather be teaching them. I'd rather be actually teaching these children these things, but they do have their uses, and gap analysis and seeing where the children actually,
of course,
the questions where you think, oh, I kind of expected most of them to be getting that. Well, now I can do that in my starters, and we can really focus on that. So I've had assessment week. It's been enjoyable for me to see how the children are getting on. I'm not sure the 3 children, by the way, in my class who all had birthdays this week, who all spent it doing assessments, liked it that much. That's
rubbish. That sucks. You just think about assessment, just reminded me of just a really quick story, just my favorite little thing. It was a spelling test. It was years ago, but it's just stuck in my head. And the word was giraffe. And you'll know this story.
I know this
the way it's spelt, right? Because I showed it about 5,000 times because it made me laugh so much. The best spelling of giraffe ever, and I want you listeners just to think, what would be, how could you spell giraffe in a funny way that still says giraffe? And it's the most simplistic way. 4 letters long, okay? D-R-A-F. Giraffe. It was the best spelling I've ever seen of a word, and I just think that person should really write their own dictionary. But yeah,
I think that's brilliant, because they're absolutely just using their sounds. So giraffe. Wait, so okay, the word's giraffe. Let me say giraffe. That's how we say it. We say words like that.
Yeah, it's like not even I just love that I didn't get the GI, because we don't really pronounce it, do we, properly? But
no, we don't often say giraffe. Like, we just say it really quick. There's another really common one with spelling, actually, and it's the ED ending, because that ED ending quite often makes a T sound. So what we'll see a lot of in our writing is they'll say jumped, and you can tell the children have sat there and gone, okay, how can I spell this word? Let me sound it out. Jump, and they just put a T on the end.
Yeah.
And you have to look at it and go, well, there's some logic there at least. You didn't put a Y for no reason.
And then, as in the English language, we thought, let's make some of them actually have a T. And then you get words like burnt. And I know there's more logic behind it. We can explain why there's burned and burnt. But for the kids, they're just like, what? Yeah. Some of them have T. I thought it was always ED. Oh, God.
Absolutely cracks me up. Reminds me of that video we made, Hayden, of the OUGH ending and how many different ways there are of saying it. It's crazy. How on earth do people with a foreign language learn this English language? I do not get it. Is that uff, that sound? Yeah, sometimes. What do you mean? Well, there's through, actually. And there's do. There's oo. Yeah. There's just 5. There's 5 or 6, isn't there?
Yeah, I think we've found 6 different sounds for the OUGH spelling. One more thing that happened this week, which I knew you'd find quite funny because of the visual comparisons here. But it had a kind of half observation. It wasn't a proper observation, but we had like a visitor come around our school. Head teacher took them round. She helps with our like school improvement plan and stuff. Came into my lesson for about 20 minutes, which was nice. But I was a bit, you're always on edge, aren't you, when someone's just sat there like watching, clearly judging you. Anyway, I'm thinking, right, let's make this really good. The kids would come to the front. We were doing some whiteboard work on the board, and one of the children just called me Voldemort. And when it's like it's like a little in joke with me and the kids. Like we'd been messing around the day before. I was calling her Hedwig, and she was calling me Voldemort because I was pretending to be offended. She was like, "You look like Voldemort because you're bald," and I was like, "Oi, oi, that's mean." And I started calling her Harry Potter names, and we were just having a joke. But out of context, I was like, "Oh, I don't want the head teacher just to think that these kids are just rinsing me, calling me Voldemort."
Inappropriate.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, "Oh, it just made me feel so awkward." But I knew it'd make you laugh because of Voldemort. Ugh.
That is hilarious. And that's true though, because like you said, sometimes, that's happened to me before, right? Where I've told the children, for example, my first name. Because I just don't care. Because by the way, guys, I'm a human being with a name. I'm not just Mr. Price who lives in his cupboard when you go home. Like I don't just come out in the morning. I'm a human being. So I often tell them stuff about my personal life, like that's relevant. Or, if they tell me something that happened at home, I'll say something I did that weekend. I went to see my parents and they've got a dog and we went out for a walk, whatever. So I tell them my name. And then obviously you tell some children the name of their teacher, especially if the teacher before thought that was inappropriate for whatever reason or chose not to make that a thing. They're really excited by it. And it's quite cute. Like you tell them your age, like, you're 29. And I'm like, yeah, I know. If that's made you happy, then that's the easiest thing in the world.
They don't believe me,
isn't it?
I tell them my age. They don't believe it.
No one believes it. The parents don't believe you either, mate. And then also, so I tell them my name was Dylan. And I remember very vividly in another school, there was this teacher who was a bit more old school. Absolutely loved her. She was brilliant. But she was a bit more old school where that would be completely inappropriate for the children to ever know or call you by their name. Disrespectful. Just not right.
Yeah.
And I remember because I was having a chat with her and one of my children walked past and the child went, "Hey, Dylan, how you doing?" Like that. So I'm prepared to reply. I'm just going, oh, careful what you like. I just laugh it off because of the context, right? There's context that I've told them it and I've made a joke and that's fine to me. And this teacher just lost it. She was like, "How dare you disrespect your teacher?" And I was like, "Well, stop it." Because I'm there like, God, I'm the reason this child's getting told off now. Have I pushed the line by telling them my name? I don't think so. That it's exactly what's happened there, isn't it? With your little joke and the head coming in. It's like, oh, this is fine, but why now? Why have you done that right now? Can we just... And then you feel like, I shouldn't be hiding it anyway. It doesn't really matter. So it's all about context, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And it's our decision, personal decision. I had chose to have that joke with that child. I chose to not get annoyed when they compared me to Voldemort because they were trying to be funny. They weren't trying to insult me. They were trying to have a laugh.
Yeah, it's all about the context. And linking onto that is funnily enough, actually, it's kind of linked, I suppose. One of my children this week, I really got on with him. And my children, they were just, when they just get a bit too loud and they just carry on a little bit too much sometimes, and you just have to remind them and you just have to bring them back down and just say very calmly and, use that whole, guys, you're letting me down a little bit because actually I don't mind if you're having a chat about this or that. If you're getting the work done in this context and you're talking about the work, but you're just going a little bit too far, guys. I think sometimes you're just chatting about something different, something else to do with the lesson. And it's not really the time for that. And you just try and level with them in that way. And that works 95% of the time. Never have to raise your voice or actually get annoyed at them. They kind of do reason with that. And one of my boys came up to me and he said, "Mr. Price." And I was like, yes. You just said about, obviously, we weren't really our best behaved this afternoon. And I was like, yeah. Well, I was just thinking what I'm going to do because of that. After school, I'm going to go to the shop in the corner and I'm going to get you something. And I was like, I said, no, not at all. Listen, we all have these times sometimes. And I just wanted to remind you what the expectations are. And that's fine. Just next time, we're just going to try and focus on our work a bit more. It's just a whole class thing. You don't have to get me anything at all. And he kind of put his finger out like this. And no. Listen. I'm the boss around here and I don't take no for an answer.
Oh no. I love it when they repeat phrases.
Oh mate. Yeah, they just hear that from somewhere. And I was like, okay, but listen to me. I don't want you to do anything for me like that. I just want next time as a class, we're going to really focus on our work. Yeah. And he was like, okay. And anyway, so at the end of the day, he's walking off. And he's with me to start with, obviously waiting for parents to pick up. And he just looked at me and goes, "Yep." You know where I'm going. I was just like, no, don't do this, please.
was so awkward,
And then he
wasn't it?
walked off. So he's trying to play it cool, like, yeah, I'm the boss and stuff. His parent arrived and he walked off and he was, oh, there's mum. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, sure, off you go. And he walked off and he's dead sweet. He always waves at me as he goes as well. Really, really sweet boy. He just wants to be nice and waves. Bye, Mr. Price, bye. And he's walking off. He goes, bye, see you later, bye, love you. And he just paused and we looked at each other and he was just like, he went red as a beetroot because he just used to say it to his mum and he was just like, and I just pointed to her and I went, oh, careful. Like that.
You better go to that shop now. I won't tell your mates. That actually has happened to me a couple of times, and my favourite one, it was like a double. It was so funny. There was this boy, like, equal sort of thing. I had a nice relationship with this kid, right? Really, really nice. And his whole family, to be honest with you. And he was in year 6 at the time, years ago now. And he was leaving the room. He was the last one out of the room. So he's lucky no one else was around. They didn't laugh at him. And he called, first of all, he called me mum. It was like, all right.
Poor mum.
Like,
his
all right.
poor mum.
Yeah, thanks, mum.
Like
And then he did that thing where he just immediately you like jolt because you're like, oh God, I've said the wrong thing, and that's terribly embarrassing. And he was embarrassed and then a bit flustered. And then as he was leaving the door, he kind of closed it. He went, all right, okay, love you. And he got it again. He called me mum and then said love you, and he just left in like red faced and just left, and it just really made me
in
laugh.
Silence. He was done in. He was like, just don't open your mouth.
I was giggling for ages, just knowing that for him that's like he's going to think about that all day now. Like, I can't believe I called my male teacher mum. Oh dear.
Unbelievable. So before we move on, going back to assessment week, what I'm going to do, Hayden, because obviously we set up the Instagram this week, right? And it's actually been pretty awesome. We've got a whole bunch of followers. Some of our friends, obviously, some people we know. Some of you guys, I don't actually know where you've come from. So hiya if you're listening and we don't know who you are. Thank you so much for paying attention and following our Instagram. Because what I'm going to do, Hayden, I'm going to post a couple of funny exam answers on our Instagram. So if you want to go and take a look, and my absolute favorite one, it will be the last one, obviously, because you need to play the Instagram algorithm, right? You need to get them swiping. I've heard that's what you do. So the last picture I'll put on the roulette wheel will be one from your girlfriend, Hayden, which is, honest to God, one of my favorite ever. Do you see them online sometimes? You're like, oh God, that's unbelievable. That will never happen to me. That's crazy. And we see our own ones that are quite funny and maybe a bit silly. The one that your girlfriend has, I'm not going to give any spoilers. Maybe Hayden, you can just say one word at the end, which might give people a hint. Is my favorite answer ever. Go and see it on our Instagram, Teach, Sleep, Repeat Podcast. I want you to go on to that and take a look. Hayden, what's the one word hint?
Well, I don't know. I might give it way too much. I'm going to go for the less hinty one. Really.
Okay.
I'm just going to say Pentagon.
Okay, brilliant. I was hoping you'd go for that one.
Yeah,
as soon as I said one word, I was like, oh, don't give it away.
Yeah.
Because it comes down to a misunderstanding, let's say, of the word Pentagon. It's really worth seeing. So guys, check us out. And Hayden, I think it's time for us to actually move on. This week, we wanted to take a look at something that really, really bugs us as teachers, and that is toxic SLT. And before we go into any detail, I really want to make it clear, both of us do, that the schools we currently work at absolutely do not think this about our current managers, our leaders, one bit. This is not at all what we're talking about. We're talking about where we hear in the community of teachers horror stories of management just going AWOL, going absolutely off the rails, and just bringing in rules, bringing in expectations, which are just completely unreasonable and makes you think, what on earth are you thinking? Where do you get off? Yeah. But there was one thing that came up this week, Hayden, that really riled me up, and it kind of links to completely incompetent, useless leaders. And that is something from the release of Matt Hancock's WhatsApp messages. Have you seen anything about
Okay, yeah, I saw you put this on our Instagram, but I was meant to ask you. I've genuinely have no. It's clearly trending. I don't know what it is though. So if you could fill me in, that would be great.
Okay, that's good, because I can tell you what happened, and then maybe we can have a discussion from there about your original thoughts. So essentially, Matt Hancock, the guy who went and I'm a Celebrity. You know that guy. Yeah. The other guy who was the health secretary during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know that guy, fumbling buffoon, basically, who made rules and then didn't follow them himself.
Yeah.
That guy. Top guy. Yeah. But he was a bit nice on I'm a Celeb. But I think it's quite nice. Oh, we should forgive him.
He showed
remorse.
remorse.
Let's have a look at what happened. Oh, he said sorry once and pretended to cry on telly. So basically, Matt Hancock very recently tried to kind of steal a jump, because at the minute there's a big COVID inquiry going on. I don't know how long it's going to take. It's dragging their feet. Obviously, there's going to be loads of things that happened during the COVID pandemic that were wrong, incorrect. They made bad decisions. But there is a genuine, I think, understanding, even from me, the most vehemently against the Conservative Party, that I do understand that it was happening in real time. We've not had anything like this before. They had to make quick decisions. And actually, there are certain things that they did, which I think, well, they tried to act quickly and maybe it was the wrong thing to do. Even down to some of the contracts that they ordered. They ordered loads and loads of something. Maybe it didn't come through. There was some talk about it giving loads of money to their friends and stuff. But I do think sometimes they were just trying to secure huge amounts of PPE as soon as possible. And it kind of just went wrong. And
other times they were just trying to secure huge amounts of money for their friends. So it's 50-50.
But this is the problem. And this is the point I'm making, is that yes, there were that. But how on earth can you look past the other things which were just outright outrageous? I can't think of a different word to say. Yeah. Absolutely idiotic decisions. And the thing that's really interesting is what's happened is Matt Hancock, like I was saying, he released a book recently, The COVID Diaries. Really soon, realistically, if you think about it, after what happened, very raw. Lots of families died and had people who died in due to COVID. And due to direct decisions that the government made, let's be realistic. And there's he tried to steal a march, basically. He tried to release his own story before the inquiry came out, before anyone could say anything. Obviously, to try and frame it to make him look better, right? Of course he's going to do. He's not going to frame it in a way where he's like, I was a bubbling buffoon who got everything wrong.
Of course.
But what he did was he worked with a reporter, a journalist called Isabel Oakeshott, I believe her name is. And she is one of those GB News types, Talk TV, very much anti-lockdown, but quite a prominent figure on the right of politics in England. And for all intents and purposes, knows how to put an article together, let's say, knows how to put a good piece of writing together that's engaging, gets clicks and things like that. He worked with her on this book. She was basically his ghostwriter because obviously he's not an author. He's not a very good self-secretary, never mind an author as well. And she had signed a non-disclosure agreement to release any of these WhatsApp messages because he decided to give them to her as if to say, look, here's everything that happened. Here are all my WhatsApp messages. I think it was, let me get this right. It's over 100,000 messages and there's over 2 million words, right? That he literally handed over to her as if to say, look, this is everything that happened. Let's write a diary about what went on. And essentially it turns out that the whole of government during this time went onto WhatsApp. I think WhatsApp's this place where actually we were having things decided about our freedoms and our liberties and our rules and our children and our schools just via WhatsApp. As if I send memes on WhatsApp. How on earth is political stuff going on WhatsApp? And essentially what's happened is she released them to the Telegraph. So she ignored the NDA and her point is, well, it's for the public good. This is a woman who was anti-lockdown, right? Completely anti-lockdown, who the health secretary who imposed lockdowns chose to help write his book defending him. And now he's shocked that she's turned around and released these messages. And it's just filled. And the Telegraph have said, look, there's about 50 stories in here. And they've started to release them like one by one. Obviously, it's a great scoop for them. But the big thing, bringing this back down 360, Hayden, the reason it's relevant to us is at the time, obviously, the education secretary was Gavin Williamson. Gavin Williamson, by the way, the guy who recently got sacked from his role for being a bully, the guy who got passed from pillar to post and has a government job somehow, despite being continuously incompetent.
That guy.
The guy who the guy who completely messed up the algorithms for predicted grades and messed up all of the A levels. Do
you like him?
Guy? I like him. I like him because my favorite part about him and this whole mess was when they sent us back to school in January 2021 for one day.
Yeah.
And Boris Johnson went on telly at the weekend and said schools are perfectly safe places. I can't even say my words. I'm so angry. Schools are perfectly safe places for children to be. There's no reason to fret. And we went back for one day and then he said they're closed for 6 weeks because they can be vectors of the virus. So Gavin Williamson.
That guy.
Him. Really, really sound geezer. Him and Hancock obviously having a back and forth because Hancock's the health secretary, Williamson's the education secretary. And essentially in these leaked messages, they're just rinsing teachers. They're rinsing the NEU. And Williamson's point was, Matt Hancock said, great, cracking news conference today to Williamson, who announced this new thing. Those teaching unions really are, and then used a 5-letter word beginning with A to describe the teaching unions, to which Gavin Williamson replied going, yeah, they are. They really, really, really just don't like work. Basically, completely going in on the fact that the classic stereotype of, teachers just hate work. The guy who's in charge of them, by the way, the education secretary,
imagine
in private messages.
being that, just having an opinion that's that wrong. So rooted out of reality. Like, do you know any teachers? Has he ever seen a teacher, or what their workload, what they do, like we talked about last time? It's just absurd to me to think that any teacher could not want to do work. Oh, I hate that.
Absolutely. And the point is that during this time, by the way, he was penning open letters to teachers. The sacrifices you've made are unbelievable. You've worked so hard. He had this really annoying voice as well. I know that's not relevant, but it really annoyed me because I heard him speak. And he had this you've worked so hard. It was very nasally. And I just couldn't even listen to him here. And now we knew at the time he was lying through his teeth because he didn't care. Absolutely fake. And then the other thing that they spoke about was Hancock. They were having a discussion basically about Williamson wanted schools to be able to be provided with PPE, basically. Like Williamson said, look, we need to find a way for schools to be able to get PPE through the central system, through government giving PPE. Not because he cared, by the way, not because he thought, let's protect them on the front line whilst everything else is closed. Because, and I quote, he said, it's a last resort really, because they'll just use it as an excuse not to teach. They'll use it as an excuse not to learn if they can't get their hands on PPE.
That's mad. And did we get PPE? No. So Hancock's point was, we're trying to get away from centralised. Why can't schools get their own? In the budget, that's huge. Why can't schools just get their own from their own budget? And Williamson was saying, look, he didn't come in like, teachers, I'm representing them. They're doing, we need to protect them. No. It was, they're going to want to close otherwise, aren't they? To which Matt Hancock replied with laughing emojis and an arrow hitting a bullseye. As if to say, you've hit the spot there. You've got that so totally right. We all agree with this.
And do you know what's really funny?
Yeah, go on.
What's really, really, really funny about
it's really funny, all this. I'm really laughing.
Really funny. Yeah, it's funny. You can tell my voice how funny this is. What's really funny about it, I'm going to say it again, is that during this whole time, by the way, in other messages that were leaked, because obviously this is Matt Hancock's phone, Matt Hancock was going in on Gavin Williamson, saying that he is on another planet thinking schools should stay open and that schools should actually close. So he's just pandering. Yeah. This is the government, by the way. These are the people who are supposed to come into power with ideology, right? Yeah. And, what is really evidence from these WhatsApp messages is how they were just making decisions on the fly. And what really, really gets to me is, I think in a pandemic, you cannot blame the government for certain decisions that they have to make quickly. But what is really, really evident in these messages is that the government were completely ignoring scientific advice. The government were playing politics throughout. It was true in the care homes. The government were advised that, and they said at the time, asymptomatic transmission is a thing and we need to test before we get these people into care homes. Care homes were decimated because they didn't bother. And they say it's because, A, they didn't know about asymptomatic transmission, which is a lie. There is literally recordings of Parliament from March 2020 of them talking about asymptomatic transmission. And the second one is because they say there wasn't enough testing capability. At the time, there was much less testing. But if we're talking about priority testing, right? Do you think maybe the care homes, from hospitals to care homes, the most vulnerable people in the whole country, probably should have been the number one priority? And the cherry on the cake, Hayden, we didn't have enough tests for people going into care homes to protect our most vulnerable. But at this point, Jacob Rees-Mogg had a test specially couriered in for his daughter who had COVID at the time.
Classic. That just shows the classes in there, doesn't it? I wonder how much money they made as well out of these contracts, because I always just think, it's kind of like, the whole Roald Dahl thing we talked about last time. And how big, huge, powerful organizations, groups of people can will pretend to have some sort of moral high ground when actually it's just all about money the whole time. I just wonder how much of it, like you've exposed it there with those messages. They don't care. They didn't care. There was no morality there at all. It was just, how much money can we squeeze out of schools? How much money can we not give them for these things? But on the surface, we'll be like, the sacrifices. We're going to get PPE to schools and we're going to close it because we've realized it's actually unsafe even though we've been saying it for weeks and weeks. Like, ugh, I hate it.
Yeah, because
hate the whole
I
thing.
actually think what happened was Boris went on television on the Saturday and said schools are a safe place to be.
Yeah.
And actually, funnily enough, Hayden, every single piece of scientific advice actually changed on the Sunday, and that's why they had to close the schools because obviously the science only realised in that 48-hour period that it wasn't that they were ignoring it up until then. It was definitely them listening to the science. They listened to the science all the way through, apart from when they didn't, and it's been horribly exposed. And I think. And I'm kind of rubbing my hands together here that over the next few weeks, I think there'll be more and more. I will say this though, I think some people might say, "Oh, he's had his WhatsApps leaked," and it doesn't wash with me because if it was personal, if it was just chats with family, if it was just his own personal life, I would then feel sorry for him. I'd be like, "Oh, look, we all have our personal life, we all have our things going on." That is like a different line. If you're conducting government work on your WhatsApp, this is open to freedom of information because of that. Yep. This is absolutely fine. Do you know what he said to defend himself, by the way? Matt Hancock.
Hancock? Go on.
Yeah, have a guess. Have a guess. What do you think he might have said when his literal WhatsApps from his ghostwriter, who clearly has them, has just released them? What do you think he said in response?
Probably just that they were private conversations and they shouldn't have been leaked or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that might have been like a sensible thing to do, right? He has tried to say that they've been doctored and don't show the true. They're not true. Like truly what went on.
Like out of context, they've been pulled.
There's
out
no
sort of
context. Yeah, exactly. Because it's a politician's best friend says no context when actually there's just like an irrefutable statement that's been said.
yeah. Would there be any context that would make it sound good? Because I'm not.
Oh, you've given the context now that you hate teachers. No problem, Education Secretary. Crack on, mate. No problem.
Well, I think we should use this kind of idea of exposing toxicity and move on to our next section of this podcast, which is kind of like you've already described, but very quick summary is all about just exposing some of those really toxic teams out there in the country, in the world, who make their staff's lives hell because actually they don't do a very good job. They are quite incompetent. Majority of schools, fantastic. There are SLT out there that are just doing an amazing job. Majority of people are doing that, and we think you're great. But there are some members of SLT out there, including head teachers, who do just not deserve to be in that role because they are not making lives any easier of their staff or potentially even their pupils.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really interesting to me, now that we've got a really good idea of what an incompetent leader looks like, Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock, and with them, I think we can go into this now with an idea of actually it's not just schools. I know lots of people listen to this podcast who don't even work in a school, which I find crazy, by the way. But thank you so much for staying along. As Hayden always says, why are you here? But please stay.
Not sure what you're doing. Yeah, carry on. Crack on. Give us the views.
But I think we can all kind of resonate with that really annoying boss who just is so out of touch. And the first thing I wanted to say is what really grinds my gears about these people is when they use their position of power to literally become a bully, because that is the definition of bullying. It's an imbalance of power and putting your position in that kind of role as above someone to just intimidate them and make them think that things are wrong and gaslight them. One of the biggest things that I've noticed in schools is when SLT or people in charge just lie. They just lie to get something through and hope no one will say anything. There's one example, one story, because obviously we've asked people for different stories. We've had loads in. So we're going to kind of just draw on all of them rather than have just a feature and we'll discuss them. Just one of them was simply telling a part-time member of staff who works Monday to Wednesday. Ofsted came in. It was Thursday. You'd think that the reaction might be, oh, Ofsted are coming in. Would you mind coming in for some overtime? We'll give you a day in lieu. We'll pay you, can you? Asking them. No. Yeah. They said, you must come in. It's the rule. You have to be in. Ofsted are here. See you tomorrow. Can you imagine doing that?
Yeah. I can imagine people doing it, but it's just completely wrong, like you said. And people they'll be, if that head is quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Like just overbearing perhaps with the way they talk. You might be intimidated and be like, oh, okay, and just not question it because it's not worth it. They'll make your life hell if you question it and you'll just do it. It's just not right, is it? It's
just toxic. It's an absolute toxic environment where people can say that kind of thing and they don't even feel like they can be questioned. My question is to these people, who holds them accountable? Those schools where they make staff's life a misery. If something's not quite what they think it should be, they'll observe them every 2 weeks. They're in the classroom, walking around, telling you should have done this, you should have done that, undermining the people who actually are with the children every single day, actually delivering the lessons. Who holds them accountable for giving the feedback? I've had feedback before, maybe you've had the same, Hayden, where I fundamentally disagreed with them or they've been wrong. I've been told before how to use a certain grammatical clause and the way I taught it was wrong when it was actually correct. These people, what do you say to that? They've got it wrong.
Well, talking about toxic management, I'm off on one now in my head here, thinking of memories and how I've worked at a few schools, and I've worked in a school before where I did think the management got really toxic, and I left. That's why I left. I didn't like working there anymore. And one of the things they did, which is the main reason I left, was that they mistreated staff once they wanted to get rid of them. Once you didn't fit anymore, and it was often older staff that had been there for a long time. Once you didn't fit
expensive
anymore, expensive staff. Yeah, exactly that. Their way of getting rid of them was just let's just bully them. Let's just reduce them to tears on a regular basis. What we'll do is we'll go in, we'll watch their lessons disproportionately so that they feel like, oh, why am I being watched all the time? And every single lesson they do, we'll tell them it was absolutely terrible and they have to be reobserved. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Doesn't matter that you've been teaching 25 years. That was the worst thing I've ever seen. Make them cry and then just do it. Rinse and repeat week after week after week, and then they quit. And it worked.
And if they don't quit, what they did was, because I also worked in this school, they would move the every single year. So if they managed to get through a year and they thought, okay, we've got 3 or 4 years until retirement, let's just get through this. They'll move them the next year to a different year group. And then if they got through that year, they'll move them again. They will just do every single trick in the book to not give the people the respect they deserve. These women who have put their lives into the education system, who grown adults would walk past them in the street, stop and be thankful for what they've given them in the classroom. No, it's okay because the CEO is in. When did schools get CEOs, by the way? Sorry, are we in London? Are we in the city doing a financial trade? What's the CEO doing walking in telling me how to teach? How many times has the CEO taught? Are they in the classroom at all? And they're coming, actually no, because what we said was actually the first 5 minutes we should be doing quiet independent reading, and for the next 3 minutes the children should be doing their books. You actually were doing it for 4 minutes, so I'm going to come and reobserve you next week.
And I've noticed in your book there was only 7 peer assessments when there should have been 5 self-assessments and 3 peer assessments. So actually that's not good enough. I hate all that stuff. I absolutely hate, I'm just saying, right, I'm going to go rant, tick box exercises where you get this idea from Ofsted of what they want to see and you just put it into a checklist and you're like, okay, everyone's books need to have these things in them. Every lesson has to have these things in them. But what if my kids don't? No, it doesn't matter. The pedagogy doesn't matter. It's not about the kids. It is about ticking these boxes. That is more important than actually, bespoke situations where you might go off on a tangent and teach these children a different way because you recognize that that's what they need. They don't need that self-assessment sticker right now.
I remember this one example. It's exactly this. And it really makes me laugh. We worked in this school together and we had to use stickers for marking, for everything. Had stickers, success criteria. And it seemed like every term there was a new staff meeting, which ended up at the end being, okay, so we're going to have stickers for this in every lesson. So it would start off with learning objective would have its own sticker. Success criteria would have its own sticker. So we had 1 and 2, so that's 2. Then we had to have a sticker of orange and green, depending on how the children got on. So we'd mark the work and then stick in orange if it wasn't they didn't get the objective, green if we felt like they were secure. So that's 2. Then the next lesson had to start with the green pen question, which was on another sticker. So that's 4 stickers for one lesson right now. Then 3 times, was it 3 times a week we had to do a peer assessment, which was another sticker. So in one lesson so far, by the way, there's twice as many stickers as there is work in the book. But it's okay because it's what we have to do because that's what we do, isn't it? We have to have stickers in the book. So that's 5 stickers. And I'll always remember it got to the point where we then had a staff meeting and it was on involvement. And the idea of involvement, you're laughing already. The idea of involvement was basically how involved are the children in the lesson? Is your pitch correct so that it's not too easy that they're bored, but it's not too difficult that they can't be engaged? So it was it was basically a very posh way of saying pitch. It was like a really long way of telling experienced staff members, your children should be engaged in the lesson. It's like, thanks for that. So what came out of that was to show that we're worried about involvement, in case the big O came in, because that's the most important thing, obviously. In every single lesson, we had to put another sticker in, and the children at the end would have to circle 0 to 5 for how involved they thought they were.
So rubbish, wasn't it? Oh,
Not even
man.
how involved I thought they were, who was observing them. At the end, they had to go, oh, was I 5? 5. I had either 5s or 0s. That was it. No one was ever 4.
Yeah,
no one's
of course
ever a
they
2.
Because they've been pulled up about it. Do you remember when we made that sheet? we made this. We were so just sick of all this rubbish.
We were fed up.
honestly.
We were trying to make a point, weren't we?
We're trying to have a laugh. And ironically, it got lost because it did all the right things. But we made this sheet.
Because they liked it. They liked it. I remember. They saw it and they're like, wow, that's good. And we were like, this is meant to be a joke.
So like sometimes it was one of those lessons where you take pictures and stuff. So we kind of made this nice, like we used to just make these nice little sheets where you'd put like a compilation of pictures on there and stick it in their book. It was nice for them. You know, we all do some
Because they
stuff.
wouldn't have done any work in their book, right? So the idea was that it was just evidencing that we did work.
Exactly that. That was their lesson, you know. And so on the sheet, we snipped in all the stickers, so it was all in one, and it had the learning objective, the success criteria, it had the green pen question, it had the marking feedback at the bottom, and then it had the involvement sticker. And I'm sure there was something else as well. There was a box.
There was a box for self-assessment. We put a
box
self-assessment
for
sticker,
self-assessment
and then a
with
box.
Oh man, and then there was like one picture because all of this junk just took up the whole sheet, and it was just to make a point of why are we doing all this rubbish? Like it just takes so much time, and it's unnecessary, and it doesn't improve learning. And you know, surprise, surprise, I'm sure it's all been scrapped by now because none of it was remotely rooted in this is actually good for the children. It was just what do Ofsted want at the moment? Let's tick that box. Ugh.
And not untick another box, which we've been doing for ages. Like it's that classic thing of another thing. I'll always remember because the feedback stickers, the orange and green feedback stickers, again, Hayden and I, we knew we were leaving. We knew we were going. We didn't want to be in this school anymore. And all the feedback stickers would be half like a generic statement. Well done. You have managed to divide using short division or whatever it is. Yeah. And there was always a picture at the top, and it was usually just like a smiley face or, you know, like
or something related to the
nice picture. So yeah, like an addition symbol if we're doing addition or something that we'd find and waste our time doing when we plan. So Hayden and I were like, cool, well, if we've got to do this, we're just going to absolutely take the mick. And we ended up just picking random pictures. We'd have like cartoon characters, and the absolute peak one, and I hope one day there are some children I taught a few years ago, and they'll be in secondary school now, maybe even leaving, who look back at their old maths books, open up one day, and they'll see a green sticker saying, well done, with David Brent giving a thumbs up at the top.
Oh, it's so bad, but it's so funny. Oh, man.
They don't
David
know. It's
Brent.
just, to them, it's just a guy in a suit going, thumbs up.
Just Ricky Gervais, like, wait. Well done. Doing this little
You've
wink.
managed to go through negative numbers.
Oh, man. It was just a joke, wasn't it? I enjoyed them. I went through the whole cast of Winnie the Pooh over a couple of weeks. The whole cast made it on there, little pictures of Winnie the Pooh, just completely irrelevant because the whole thing was relevant. None of the children even looked at it anyway.
Exactly. That was the point. That was the point. I could have put a picture of you on there. They would have just, they wouldn't even looked at it. Of course they don't. So
I've just thought, sorry, speaking of pictures of you, this is really funny because it happened yesterday and I totally forgot to tell you. So, oh God, hang on, right. There it is.
Is this for now or should we save it for our stories later?
Oh, go on, save it for the stories.
Okay. Save it for the story. So guys, this means, and Hayden, I've been learning about engagement and retention, okay? This is how we do it, apparently. So don't tell the guys listening, obviously. This is how we do it. We say we're going to do something at the end, then they carry on listening. So we're going to do it at the end, okay? All right. So I'm going to give you some quick fire now. Mm-hmm. Some stories that I got from some people about toxic management, okay? So let's just see if you've experienced this or what your initial thoughts are. You've not seen these, okay? Number one. All right. Being expected to cover wet lunch and break time if it's raining and just not getting a break. Just that's the rule.
I have experienced it, and not in a long time, to be fair, but I do know of some friends who work at a school where they have to go on break duty every day. I'm not even joking. Every day, and they don't get a break. And that's just expected. And I'm like, okay, that's wrong. You can't do that. And they're like, no, they found a clause. They found a way around it. Like the amount of hours before lunch is like just the exact amount. And they can just not give us a break. So we're on break duty every single day.
That's crazy. And then sometimes I've heard stories of people on lunch duty. It's like lunch is not directed time. Let's not get into directed time. I think we should do a whole podcast, by the way, on directed time. I reckon we could fill it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. This one is just unbelievable. Being called at 12 o'clock, roughly, on a sick day so that they could check up and see if you can still come in.
What? Being called for the next day? Coming in the next day?
No. That day to say, hey, yeah, how you feeling? Do you reckon you come in for the afternoon?
No.
Can you believe that?
That's ludicrous. And I just know that SLT member just wouldn't have thought that through. They wouldn't have thought that through, that's actually objectively terrible. And just
it's blinkers.
They're sick.
They've got a problem. They've got blinkers on. They're like, okay, this is the way I can solve it. Can you come in? It's like, you've called on a sick, leave them alone. Do not call them. Okay, another one.
Go on.
Directed time. So this is linked to directed time. We will do a whole one. 3 meetings a week after school, which they have to go to. It's not a choice. 3 meetings a week after school for an hour, plus very often meetings scheduled in PPA where maths leads, English leads will come along and look at their planning and tell them what to do, which takes up the whole PPA.
I know that they'll have some comment ready. Do you know what I mean? If you talk to the SLT, like you call them out and they'll be like, no, actually the hours add up. And they'll just find some spiel to add up to you. But I'm like, just think for a second though about your actual teachers as human beings. Like, do you think that you should ignore the fact that they have to do hours of marking every day for free, by the way, because it's never in directed time? Like, it's not acceptable. Just have a bit of empathy, compassion for these people. But like, well, actually, maybe we shouldn't do free meetings this week because they have got marking every single day and they've got to plan their lessons at the weekend. Like, I just hate it. I hate it when they're by the book one way. Teams, they do this. SLT do this. We're totally by the book this way, but there's no leeway the other way though. Do you know what I mean? There's like, it's fine this way. Yeah, give us some extra time here and there. But but you got to work the exact hours. We can tell you what to do.
Because of our policies and things, we're really by the book when it comes to you doing it for us. But if we ever want to give you anything about that, stretch it. Let's not talk about statutory, shall we? Let's have a think about that. The big thing for me is PPA. I detest anyone ever trying to direct my PPA. That is my time that I'm entitled to get my stuff ready, to get ahead. It doesn't scratch the surface of the jobs I've got to do. If anyone ever tried to put a meeting in my PPA, I would absolutely give them a piece of my mind, Hayden.
Or using PPA as an excuse. If you're like saying, imagine you're struggling, right? You'd be like, I'm just not getting all this stuff done. They say, do it in your PPA. You've got your PPA. I've not been able to plan my lessons. Don't do it the weekend. Do it in your PPA. As if it's like this token small amount of time is enough time to get literally anything done. I don't know any teacher that actually, I mean, I'm sure they do, but most teachers I find just use PPA to get marking done a bit earlier for one day a week, maybe not go home at 5:30, 6 p.m. and potentially plan like 1 or 2 lessons. You're not getting a whole week of lessons planned every PPA, getting your marking done. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't happen.
Here's a good one, because this doesn't actually present as toxic at all. And I wouldn't say anyone who does this is necessarily being horrible, but it does lead into the culture. SLT walking around after school saying, just go home.
That's such a classic thing. I know what you mean, because I have experienced it from so many people who are lovely, who I respect, and I don't have a bad word to say about them. But they would say that sort of thing. And I've probably done it as well. I'm sure I've done it to people like staff members, like, just go home. Come on, you're knackered, go home. Stupid, because like, okay, I'll just go home and do this work when? Is it expected? Do I have to get this marked? Yes. Okay, can I not mark it? No. Okay, so I can't go home then, can I? What are you talking about? Just go home. Yeah. Oh, we'll do it in the morning.
It's kind of the same logic as the whole PPA thing, because quite often people will get meetings scheduled in their PPA, right? Maybe they're meeting with parents for some reason, or there's an EHCP to go through, or there's just, you have to have meetings in school. That has to happen, right?
Yeah.
And if they get scheduled in your PPA, that's really annoying. And I would absolutely be like, no, I'm not doing it on my PPA. It's like, cool. Well, that has to happen though. That meeting has to happen. So that hour of my time is being taken up. So actually sometimes people might prefer it in their PPA, but the point is I've still lost an hour. It's still got to go somewhere. Like there's no like, I've got this, I've got pupil progress this week. In our school, we get time booked out from the timetable to go and do them as it should be. Yeah. Some schools don't. They do it at lunchtime. They do it at PPA. It's like, cool. Well, I know that's technically free time, sure. But it's got to happen at some point. And actually, it doesn't really matter if it's PPA or not, because it's still an hour less to go and do your job, which you've got loads to do outside of it anyway. Indirected
direct time is the phrase I'm going to start coining now and use that. Because it is, isn't it? Like what you said, if you're absolutely right. If you've got to do if that meeting takes an hour, right? It doesn't matter where you put it. It's still an hour extra than what you're going to do. And if you're being told you have to do it, that you're being directed to do it. And if it's not been put in your directed time, it's going somewhere else, like in your PPA or after school or something. They're directing you to do it. Simple as that. There you go. They've breached your contract. You've done more hours than you paid for. Another hour of free work, and it does grind your gears. But we'll do a whole episode, like you said, about directed time, because that's a big topic.
Okay, last one, which I find really interesting. Having worked in a school that does this, and I didn't like it, and I now work in a school that doesn't, and I think it's much better overall. Okay. It's a very simple one. Parents having direct access to emails and having to reply to them within 24 hours.
Oh yeah, it's weird because I've been at schools where that is a thing and schools where that's not a thing. Sometimes it goes for the office, sometimes it goes direct to you, sometimes it doesn't go to you at all. So it's really different. My gut feeling is when I was in the position where I was directly emailing parents, I didn't mind. But in retrospect, I look at that and I think that I can't believe I did that because it took up so much time. And when I found that when they have direct access to you, they ask a lot more stuff and take up a lot more time with really genuinely unnecessary questions. Like, oh, why are they learning about this shape in maths today? So, do I really, as a professional, do I really have to now spend some time like typing to you the years of experience I have about how the curriculum works? Like, is that appropriate? So I much prefer now having a system where if parents have requests, it's absolutely fine. I'm happy to talk to a parent always. They can talk to
part of our job, right?
Yeah, of course it is. They can talk to at the end of the day. They can ring through the office if it's urgent, and I will pick up the phone and I'll talk to them. Or they can email the office and it will get to me. Do you know what I mean? There's systems there that I think should be in place for every school now.
I think, Hayden, what you're falling into the trap of here is exactly what Gavin Williamson said. You're just trying to avoid work. You just really, really, really don't like work. And sorry, just as Matt Hancock pulls back the bow and arrow to hit the bullseye, saying he agrees with him. Oh, got to put the bow down. I'm off to I'm a Celeb for 6 weeks.
Yeah, but he is working hard. I'm a Celeb representing the government. Okay, he's trying to show them in better light.
Oh, he did it to raise awareness for dyslexia. That was it. And he was going to give the money from his fee to the dyslexia charities, of which he actually ended up giving 10%. Oh yeah, that was it.
Yeah. He's best friends with Marcus Rashford now, I think. They're working together on all these like really altruistic.
Do you
projects.
remember that time where the government couldn't feed our kids and then a footballer did it instead?
yeah, I do. Yeah,
that was interesting.
And they still tried to take the moral high ground eventually of coming around to his side, like it was their decision. Yeah, actually, it is. Morally, we should do this thing. Don't you? You're only doing it because you got called out by someone with more followers than you have as a government. Okay.
So we had those are kind of small fry. They're little niggles that we don't like. But I wanted to go into some horror stories that we've heard now from SLT. I've got this story. Okay, so I'm going to tell you this story that is genuinely real, and I think it's the worst one that I've seen in a long time. And then you came up with this game for us to play. You've got. And you can explain it after. So I'm going to do this one last one, then we're going to play our game, real or no real.
Go on,
okay. Go on. So, excuse me, this is real. I want to say it one more time, guys. You're listening at home. This is a thing that a CEO, I know we've had that word before. That's right. Schools have CEOs now. CEO and a head sent an email to everyone and said this. Are you ready?
Go on.
If you are caught using your chair during teaching time, it will be taken off you.
That's not real.
That is 100%
worded
real.
Like that.
If you are caught, not seen, caught. Like stealing. It's just as bad as that, apparently. If you are caught using your chair during teaching time, whatever that is, I don't know. Isn't that just all day? What are you talking about? If you're caught using your chair on teaching time, it will be taken off you. Who do they think they are talking to?
I personally love it when adults talk to other members of staff like they're 4 years old and treat them like children. I love that. It makes them feel really good and it improves their well-being. I can't believe that. Like, I understand. It's so annoying because it's like it just goes from 0 to 100 real quick. I know there is a scale here of if there was a teacher sat on their chair, sat at their desk, not looking at the children who are all just doing a task out of a book. Of course, that's terrible. That's not good teaching. That's bad pedagogy, right? But that is not the same as you spend 40 seconds sat on a chair because you're playing a video whilst the children are watching it, or you sat down for a second because you wanted to do a bit of independent writing and you've realised that when you're walking around, they just constantly, if you're behind them, that's it, bang, they want your help. And you just take that step back for a second, you sit there, you observe, and I'm watching, I'm thinking, right, that table's working well, they're getting on, and they're not asking as many questions now because it needs to be independent, this writing. There are reasons that you use your chair as a tool. It's not always, I'm a lazy teacher and my name's Gavin Williamson and I don't want to do any work, It's not, do you know what I mean? I hate it. And it's just so belittling and degrading.
I'm actually really impressed with how you've responded to that with some actual reasons, because you're right, it is about pedagogy. You can bring yourself to the children's level sometimes. You might be working with a group quietly. You might just want to sit down, Hayden. You might just fancy sitting down. Because my first thought Yeah, my first thought was not, oh, I wonder what the pedagogy is between. My first thought was, don't you dare talk to me like that. And now, out of spite, I'm going to teach the whole lesson, sat down, and we'll see how much they still learn.
I'm going to wheel around on my chair, and like, I'm going to go to the board. I'm going to awkwardly just wheel between, make all the kids move their tables. I'm going to wheel to the back to talk to that kid. Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that, by the way, as well. I was trying to think of the argument for, I don't want everyone to think that, yeah, we all just sit on our chairs and teach and don't really interact with the kids at all, because I get that argument. But you're right. Also, I've been standing up for 3 hours. I've been on break duty. I taught maths this morning. I taught English. I've been standing up for 3 hours. I just want to sit down for 20 seconds so my feet stop hurting, and then I'll carry on. You know, it's not a problem. And if imagine the SLT walking in then and being like, oh, stand up, whole class stopping like this, looking at you, thinking you're in trouble now with the head teacher. Stand up. Right, taking that away from you. Honestly, you've been naughty. And then imagine just the embarrassment of you. Mr. Stevens, why don't you have your chair anymore? Oh, the head teacher took it away from me because I was.
Were you swinging on it? Were you swinging on it and swinging backwards and nearly hit your head? No, mate. I just sat down for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh no, ludicrous.
I like the idea of this school. You know, that kind of like you're teaching and you literally go to put your bum on the chair and you know. Your cheek just brushes the fabric of your chair. Gavin Williamson pops his head around the corner. Oh, lazy.
Get him off that.
Just don't teach, do you? It's not work.
Oh, that's horrible. And I'm going to move on because I've now got a little game for you to play. Okay. So the game is this. I'm going to read to you 2 things, right, about toxic SLT. One of them's real, one of them's not. That's it. Simple as that. You got to guess which one's real. Okay?
Right, got it. Cool.
All right, 2 situations.
Is the real one that you did a fart, drop and go mission?
That's last week's game. Go and listen to last week's podcast if you want to hear that game about me farting in classrooms. But I know you all do. Here we go. Ready? First scenario. And it's first person, all right? So it's from people. I would appreciate some feedback. I'm an ECT and a solo parent. I was told that my parental leave will not be paid whilst caring for my daughter because last academic year, whilst I was a TA, I had 4 days related to childcare/child sickness. So I had a little bit of time off. They sent me an email saying that it's up to their discretion, this is the line, whether they will pay me or not. There you go. That's the first thing you mentioned, wasn't it? The SLT line. I've accepted this, and I can understand that if I'm not there to teach, then maybe I shouldn't get paid. Okay, whatever. My question is, am I still required to provide all the planning and resourcing despite being off and not being paid? They're expecting me to work from home.
They didn't.
Work from home whilst not being paid. Does that sound right? Was the question.
If this is real, then I don't know what to say. Like this, what?
Well,
what?
Save it. You save it because I got another one. Okay, this one's a bit shorter. All right. Advice, please. Our head teacher has asked for remote learning to be put on Class Teams page before Tuesday evening ahead of strike day on Wednesday. For the strike.
Right. No.
So they've asked the teachers that are striking to plan lessons, full lessons, resourced, put on Teams so that the kids at home can do it, like in lockdown, you know, on a strike day. Am I right in thinking that we should not be doing this, as we don't need to confirm whether we're even striking or not in the first place, and we shouldn't really be setting work when they're striking?
Okay, I reckon... how can I... One of them's not... Okay, let's think about this. What I think you could have made up the strike one more easily because the strikes are happening and stuff, and we had the discussions. So I'm going to say that's not real, and unbelievably, the first one about them expecting you to work on a day off unpaid to care for your sick child, by the way. Not just like you're having a day off and you're not getting paid. You're caring for your sick child and therefore being unpaid, but you also need to do work that day. Unbelievably, I'm going to say that one's true.
So you're locking in your answer. The first one's true, second one's the not true one, yeah?
Yeah, I think you made up the strike one because it's so well known that you absolutely are that's the idea of a strike. You withdraw your labour. You're not gonna withdraw your labour, then make sure that what you're withdrawing can carry on without you.
Yeah.
That's just
what SLT member would ever in the recent weeks ever possibly think that that's acceptable, right? And actually say it to their staff. You'd be insane to do that.
Are you setting up telling me that's true?
I tell you what, they're both true.
No, you absolute
They're both true.
Sly dog.
They're both true. I thought it'd be funny. They're both true. Both of those stories are true. That anonymous posts I've seen on forums and things recently, they're both true.
Do you know what that does really, really well? To finish this off and round this off really nicely. Expose how SLT, some of them, think it's their job to eke as much free work out of teachers as they possibly can. And the more free work they can eke out of them, whether that's through doing stuff out of your directed time and being told you've got to do it, or making them try and work for a strike day where they're not getting paid, or making them try to provide work and do something at home when they're caring for their sick child, these people...
Get a grip. That's all we're going to say to that.
Get a grip. And if your SLT are like that in a school, please can you tell us? Because we will just say it on this podcast. Yeah. And then, what it might be playing in your room as you're doing your marking and they're coming around. Oh, sorry, let's pause this podcast. They're just talking about how crazy it is that you're going to take my chair off me. Sorry, I'll stand up whilst I'm marking. Sorry. Oh.
Yeah. We're here to expose them. So send in your stories. Come on, do it anonymous. We won't mention any names or schools or anything like that. It'll just be here to expose and talk about it. Because you know what? The best bit is, right? We've got this ultimate protection here. Because if anyone gets annoyed at it, cool, you're doing the wrong thing then.
Yeah, I know.
If someone messages us and says, that's terrible, I do this at my school, you shouldn't be saying this because actually that's really... It's like, cool, you're the toxic person then, so you can't say anything. Thanks for telling us that. We'll put it on our next episode.
Admit to it. It's like, I'm SLT and I've done this before. Cool. Do you want to come on? Because we'll have a chat, pal. Like we can delve in. Do you know what would be really interesting? We have talked about getting guests in before. I would just like to get people in who do disagree with us, because the thing is sometimes there's a problem. I know it's funny and I know I really enjoy these podcasts, but we do kind of overlap with about 80% of our opinions. So, even though we are obviously always right, it would be nice sometimes to get someone on and have a chat with them and then tell them why they're wrong.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, great. Now everyone's going to think we're horrible.
Jokes aside, 100%. It would be really cool to get some different views on, because do you know what? We've probably misunderstood some stuff, even in there. I mean, maybe not the working whilst you're caring for your sick child thing. I don't know if there'd be another side to that. But there's definitely some parts of it that, we haven't been in that position and we don't know the pressures of it.
Because the chances are,
some things.
Within the 5 episodes we've done, there's been a listener that's actually disagreed with something we said. And that's fine. We actually like that. And we are, as opinionated as we get, and as heated as we get, we are very, very happy to accept we're wrong in a situation. I'd quite happily listen to someone who's more expert than me in a topic and tell me why I'm wrong. That's not something I'm against.
I take pride in doing that. And I will try to do that more on the podcast in the future, Hayden, and tell you why you specifically are wrong.
Right, Dylan, I think it's time to move on because we haven't even talked about our stories from the classroom yet. And you might have noticed, listeners, that this is a bit of a chunkier episode, a bit longer. So if you are listening on Spotify, let us know in the poll below whether you prefer this kind of length. It's about an hour long compared to our usual sort of half an hour. So we'd love to hear your feedback.
Absolutely. And if you're listening on any other platform, because we are now on Apple Podcasts and we're also on Amazon and all of the other providers, could you please do us a favor? Why not follow us? We can see that we are gaining followers every week. It's absolutely fantastic. It helps spread this podcast and it really helps us out. So if you could do that and give us a rating, maybe, we'd be hugely appreciative. But Hayden, as you've just said, should we dive into a few small stories this week, haven't we? Not one big one.
Yeah, and I actually want you to start with a story that happened recently, something that happened at our school, which just was hilarious. And I think you probably know what I'm talking about. It involves a toilet.
It does, yeah. We kind of hinted towards this last week. I almost forgot about this, and this wouldn't have been included today. It had my friend not messaged me going, I can't wait to hear about the toilet story. And I was like, what on earth are you talking about? And he said, you said you got locked in the toilet. Essentially, our school, the toilet has been like an ongoing problem. Our poor site manager, I swear, every other day I walk past the toilet and he's on his knees trying to fix the lock. It's just been really dodgy for ages. And he finally thought he fixed it. And it was like, we'd taken the sign down, our head had put a sign on the toilet door saying, don't use unless you want to get locked in. Making a little joke, haha, funny. He'd taken that down the day before this happened. I was like, sign's not gone. He's obviously fixed it. I went in, went to the toilet. Luckily, it was just a wee. And you'll see why that's lucky in a second. I came back out. This is after school. I opened the door. I turned the lock and it just stayed locked. And I was like, this is the dodgy one. So I'm opening it, turning the lock again. I'm like, okay, cool. All right. No problem. Stay calm, Dylan. Stay calm. I could feel myself getting like 10% nervous. I could just feel a little jump saying, I am locked in the toilet though, so that's not great. It's after school, don't know who's around. So I was like, cool, it's no problem. I've got my phone on me. I got my phone out. And then I suddenly remembered that we get absolutely no signal in our school and 95% of the staff get nothing on their phone. So I tried to ring Hayden, funnily enough. I'm like, okay, I'll just ring Hayden. Straight to voice. Hi, yeah, this is Hayden's voicemail. Okay. So the panic goes up to 20%. I'm like, I am locked in the toilet though, so it would be good to get out, wouldn't it? So I go over to the door and I just start gently knocking. Obviously nothing happens because this is in the corridor. This is like nowhere near a classroom. The only saving grace would be if someone happened to be walking to the staff room. So
also
I'm
embarrassing, isn't it? Embarrassing. Knocking on this feels
really
weird. I bet.
It's like, yeah, what's going on? Knocking at 50% now, getting a bit more. Oh, I'm locked in here, and I wanted to get out, I couldn't. So I start like knocking like this, knock, 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 knock. And apparently the teachers had heard this knocking for a good 2 minutes and just thought, they thought, it's Dave fixing the toilet.
Brilliant. They're so used to it.
No, it's
Like the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah, literally. It's just Dave. He's fixing the toilet probably. He's always around there. So me knocking. Anyway, eventually someone hears me. It felt like 50 minutes. It was probably 10 minutes maximum. Someone hears me eventually. And I say, hiya, I'm locked in. And he was like, oh, God. So he went to find our site manager, Dave, absolute legend. And Dave comes along. But in this time, obviously, the teacher's gone back to his classroom, told the people who heard it earlier. And there's eight people stood outside the door now. Oh. And I'm there going, oh, hi, everyone. Hayden over here gets his phone, starts recording. Right above at the top, there's like a window pane that no one could see through. So it's very private still. No one could see through it. All I see, he just whacks his hand above his phone's there filming. Goes, oh yeah, you just locked in there, mate. 8 people stood outside laughing.
You can imagine my delight when I walked past and saw this crowd around the toilet. And who's locked in there? Dylan? Brilliant.
I tell you now. And my teaching partner, Amy, she said this as well. She was just like, oh, I'm so glad it was you. And I said, what do you mean? And her point was basically, if it was anyone else, there'd be like a lot of concern, I think. And people, okay, let's keep them calm. Because it was me and just the way I am, I just, have a laugh and I don't really take anything too seriously. Exactly.
That's why I filmed it, because it was funny. I knew you'd find it funny.
Every single person was just laughing, having a joke, stood outside. And whilst they were laughing, the way it so happened that I had to get out was that Dave, our site manager, couldn't fix it from the outside. So he came along and he goes, Dill, I can only fix this from the inside. And I went, haha, good one. And he went, no, seriously, I can only fix it from the inside. And I was like, well, I'm on the inside and I'm locked. So how are we going to get out? And straight away I'm like, cool, we're going to get the fire brigade down here. And he went, no, it's fine. So all I hear then are like screws unscrewing down the bottom near my feet. And I look down and there's a vent, and I didn't realize there was a vent on the door. So he's basically undoing this vent. And what happens at this point? He starts passing me tools through. Screwdriver, different head, like 3 different things. And he has to talk me through how to unlock myself out the door. I took the door apart. I took the handle off from the inside. He was giving me these instructions. Obviously, it's funny. So he's there on his knees trying to look. I'm going to post a picture on our Instagram, by the way. So if you're still listening to this, our Instagram will also have a picture of my head poking through to show you that this really happened. Dave's on his knees. Everyone's taking the mic, just having a joke, having a laugh, led by you, can I just say, Hayden? And it's so funny. We've got a video of Dave just sat there. He just looks up and he goes, can I talk to him, please? And everyone just
he got really cross. He got so angry because we were all just getting in the way.
Dave is the most chill guy. He's so lovely. I've got a lot of time for Dave. He's a great, great guy. And he was just trying to help me. And he was clearly getting annoyed. Like, guys, I know it's Dylan and we can take the mic, but can we get him out, please? So he passed me through. I managed to get out in the end. It took about 5 minutes. And I got out and there were still 6 people there. And the funniest thing that happened was I'm out. Everyone's like, you okay? You all right? I was like, yeah. And our deputy head walks off going, I don't think he is all right. Like that. Like, no, I'm fine. I promise. And the best thing was I actually finally managed to get out. And what happened, Hayden?
The whole year 5 team had just caught wind that you were stuck in the toilet and were making their way down to see and presumably laugh at you. And you just got out as they arrived. And they were like, they were gutted.
Really disappointed.
No, didn't care about you. They were just we didn't get to see it.
We didn't see this caged animal in his toilet. But yeah, it was a weird feeling, because I actually said after I came out and I was fine. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. And I just like calmed down a bit. And I realized that for about 5 minutes, I wasn't fine at one point. And I was very much just pacing up and down like, I'm going to be in here forever. How can I teach from the toilet? Hey kids, get your books out, can you? So I was saying that.
Brilliant. Well, I've got another story here, expense, because earlier on in the podcast, I was about to start telling a story. And we said we'll save it for now, right?
Yes.
And that story is it happened really recently, and I just forgot to mention it when we were talking about our week, right?
So I've not heard this.
You've not heard this, and it'll ring a bell because it's something from a few years ago, but it's come up again, and it just made me laugh, right?
Okay.
So a couple of years ago, I found this well, I think you might have even showed me this just hilarious picture of Dylan, right? Maybe we could post this on the Instagram as well. There's loads of stuff on Instagram, right?
Loads of stuff.
It's and I call it Baby Mr. Price. He was young, I don't know, a couple of years old, and it's just the pose, the posture you do. It's just really funny. It made me laugh.
It's one of them classic ones with like the blue velvet background back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And like you're like, I'm just like turned to the side, aren't I, with my hands together.
But you look both 30 and 3 at the same time. It's so funny. And I just love the picture. It's one of my favorites. And I obviously took a picture of it on my phone. Anyway, a couple of years ago, just a bit of a hook for my maths class, who were all kids that knew you because they'd come up through the school and they had me in year 6, right? I put this on one of my lessons and I said, Baby Mr. Price gives you approval. And it was just a little joke just to make them laugh. And it escalated into becoming Baby Mr. Price cards, in which I made a limited edition, right? I put it onto a Word document, printed them, laminated them, and I made like maybe 20 or so. Yeah. And each card had it came with five team points. Some schools do like house points and things. So it's something they wanted, right? And I said, you'll get this, and I'll never make them again. They're limited edition. So if you get one, treasure it. I'm never doing this again.
Like a shiny card when you're collecting football points.
I said, but you only get it for really special things. You're not just going to get it for nothing. So they were, I've never known children to want something so bad. It was hilarious. Like any other school reward, meh, Baby Mr. Price cards, please give me one. I've heard that children still have them years on from their siblings. So they say, oh yeah, he's got it on his wall.
Oh, that's so good.
Brilliant.
That's
so anyway, yesterday, it was very recently anyway, a child came into my class. The same child, funny enough, who thought we were brothers. So it's just funny. And said, I found a Baby Mr. Price card in the library.
No.
And I was like, no, what? I was thinking this was a couple of years ago now. Like, surely not. He's like, yeah. I was like, go and get it. Go on, go get it. Go to the library, get it. He brought it back, and he's got this. He's treasuring this Baby Mr. Price card, holding it. And I just was so funny. And I said he could keep it. And I was like, what? Really? As if I've given him like a trophy.
No.
Can I? I was like, yeah, go on, keep it. You found it. You keep that one. He's like, yes. Yes. Other kids were
unreal.
around him. We're like, oh, what? You got one? Oh, what? I couldn't believe it. I've got to make some more of these things.
Oh my gosh, that's unreal. It's like a shiny Harry Kane. It's like, oh, I got one. I'm going to trade it. Oh, that's unreal. Well, I love that so much.
If you want to see the picture, check out the Instagram. I'll get Dylan to post it. But yeah, you can see why I made cards have it.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love those little things we do with the children, which are just like, if you get what I mean, they're just unnecessary. The kind of thing where maybe if SLT walked in, the kind of SLT that we've talked about today, they would kind of turn up their nose to it. If you spent like even 30 seconds in a lesson doing something like that, their response would be something along the lines of, how did they make progress in that 30 seconds? So I'll tell you how they made progress, because I made a better bond with them. And in the future, they're going to enjoy being in my company more, and I'm going to be able to teach them better.
There was this one time where I put it on the screen and I just like you said, nonsense. This is nonsense. It meant nothing, but the kids had a good day because of it. So whatever. Every time they went to talk, they had to bow to the Mr. Price. I was like, they go start talking. I was like, no. And they're like, oh yeah, sorry. Bow down to the Mr. Price picture. I was like, come here, it's like a shrine of you at the front. It was just so funny. We're just messing around, but they had a good day.
Do you remember that time where in your class you had this, I think this was last year, maybe a couple of years ago, you had a pet which they could take home and take pictures of, and you put the pictures up on the wall.
Not a real pet.
No. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. It was not a real guinea pig. It was like a toy guinea pig, like a teddy.
Yeah.
And the idea was they could just take it home for a week, have some pictures in, like, you know, whatever they were up to that weekend, have a picture with the hamster there. And it was just a really interesting wall of pictures of some kids were gaming, some kids were in the car on a trip to see their family, some kids were on holiday. And it was really nice, like, selection of pictures. So I just had a new picture taken for the school photo. And when that happens, for some reason in our Pigeonhole, we get like almost like a passport sheet of like 2x2 of 4 pictures of us just printed. I don't know if it's like a copy they had. I don't know what it was, but it was in my Pigeonhole anyway. And I thought, okay. So I just walked around to your room when you weren't in there, and I put it up on the wall amongst these pictures. So these pictures of all these children with hamsters and stuff. And then in the middle, it's just 4 portraits of me there smiling in the middle. And I always remember, because I didn't tell you, and I walked in one time, like, hey, who's that with the hamster up there? And for months, it had just been on your wall.
No one noticed. Yeah.
No one noticed.
Eventually, kids did. To be fair, some kids did actually go, "What? What's that up there?" After they were like, "Is that Mr. Price?" I was like, "Yeah, don't ask. I don't know why I put it up there."
Is that your brother? No, it's my cousin.
Yeah. Just one more thing, because I'm on one now. Right, there's just another a game that it's just talk about this nonsense again. Right, there's a game that I've invented, and I got a new TA recently. So the context is I've invented this ridiculous game with my maths class, And then my new TA has come in, and I was a little bit embarrassed to do it. I was like, she's gonna think that I'm genuinely insane, like I've lost my mind. Like, what on earth is this guy doing teaching kids? Because the game, just trying to make times tables more fun. They don't want to they don't want to chant.
They've done it for years. They're in year 6.
Oh,
they've done it for
exactly.
years and years.
Like they've done dice games. They've done that to death. We've done Time Spells Rockstar and stuff. And I've one game, it's like Wild Wild West shootout, and they have to like walk away from each other. First one to say the answer like wins, the other person sits down. Anyway, we've done all these games, loads. And I don't know why, but I sometimes walk around with my meter stick. I just love holding it. It's like a little cane. I can just walk around. I can rest on it. It's just a habit. I like just fiddling with stuff, right? So I'm walking around with this meter stick, and it's hollow all the way through the middle. One of those like red and yellow ones, right? And for some reason, I said, let's pretend we're in the jungle and your animal's trying to run away and I've got a blow dart. And so I held it up like a big blow dart. And if I got them with the blow dart, they had to answer my times table question in less than 5 seconds, or they had to like pretend to pass out because they were like tranquilized. It just, I'm saying it now and I'm going red because it's so embarrassing. They obviously they loved it, because it's just completely insane. So they're sat there like pretending to get shot by a blow dart and then pretending to be tranquilized if they didn't answer the question and quick enough. So this new TA starts in my maths class, and one of the kids is like, oh, can we play the blow dart? Can we play the blow darts? And I just went red, because I was thinking, I don't want to play that in front of this adult, because they're going to like question why I'm in this job. Like, just complete insanity.
Yeah, just imagine them starting on their first day thinking, oh, okay, how do you teach times tables in this school? And you're just there with a blow dart in your mouth going, what? Sorry. I'm just playing blow dart times tables. What did you say?
We're going to do some times tables. She goes to get the dice out, and I've already got my blow dart and my full jungle outfit on.
The kids are putting on their elephant ears. It's like, well, what's going on?
So instead, we played the Wild Wild West game, where they, just classic, they walk away from each other. First person to say the times table. So I put on some Wild Wild West music, and I go into this well accent, and she's already looking at me thinking, what is wrong with this guy? Honestly,
no, I reckon she was thinking, what a nice way to engage the children, because that's what it's all about, right? It is crazy what you're saying, and it is just a shame that some cultures. Some school cultures rather will just look down on that kind of thing. It's absolutely fine, isn't it?
As long as it doesn't like genuinely just waste time completely, sure. I think it's fine. As long as there's a purpose to it. If it's about engagement, fine. If it's about you just hiding some learning in some sort of fun activity, then fine.
And I do find actually that 95% of when my children are most engaged is just when I've taught something really well and explicitly and clearly, and they're just doing it. Like, engagement doesn't have to come from all these fancy bells and whistles. No. It's the kind of thing we like to do every now and then. But actually, the best engagement comes from children understanding something well and having work pitched at the right level.
And I think over the years, we've probably realized as well that these little fun things we do with the children, that if you do them all the time, it does have a negative impact. It actually, if you rile up the children, I know you mentioned this previously, I think, in a bit of a discussion in our podcast. Maybe we can talk about it more another time. But if you rile them up, it is actually hard to get them back, and then you can impact the learning. So you've got to be careful when you do these things. For sure.
But I must say, I know you touched on it earlier. This has been a mega episode. I'm actually really excited that we've done this, because we said a few times we were aiming for half an hour for these podcasts, weren't we? And the first one came at half an hour, and we said to ourselves, we're just going to have a chat. And if it goes on and we're interested in, and we'll just put it out there and we'll see what you guys think. So this is a much longer episode today. Really looking forward to seeing how you guys react to it, whether you liked it. Do you listen to it in chunks? Do you listen to it all in one go? When do you listen to our podcast? I'm really, really interested, guys, because you're our audience. You're the reason we're doing this as well. We enjoy doing it, but we want to give you some entertainment. So do email us at our lovely email, which Hayden loves and says is very succinct, at teachsleeprepeatpod@gmail.com. It doesn't have to be with a story. It can be with a funny story from school. It can be a story about rules or expectations that are just crazy that you've heard about in the school. But it could just be to say hello. We'd love to hear from you guys. Yeah. And I will just say one. Yeah, it could be an insult. And I'll say just one thing very quickly on Instagram. I've noticed that I don't know if Instagram is messing up, guys. If any of you are listening to this and you have messaged us on Instagram and we haven't replied, can you just let us know or email us? Because my Instagram's saying that we've got messages, but I can't find them anywhere. I think it might be lost in requests or something. I'll have a dig. But if you are one of those people, do let us know. Get in touch via the email because we are going to reply to everyone until obviously we have 50,000 listeners. But for now, if you message us, if you get in touch, if you reply to our story, if you give us an email, we will reply to you. And we really want to hear what you think.
Cool. Well, listen, let's do one final story. in this podcast, and then we'll wrap it up, right? Because I want to talk about the story everyone's been waiting for, the Pritt Sticks.
Hayden, we're going to have to cut off there because we have reached the limit of our podcast. So, guys, you want to hear about the Pritt Sticks, stick around for next week, and we look forward to seeing you then. Catch you next time, everyone.